breasts are. You know, your children are a product of a penis and a vagina meeting. So how shall we provide sexuality education for children if we cannot call a vagina a vagina? Allow me continue, ladies and gentlemen, because we have limited time. One of the recommendations on this clause is that Uganda should adopt a broad meaning of rape following the spirit of this. There is a case that we are referencing on page 22, so that violators, such as the one that has been given on page 17, are not able to get lesser, what is it called? Punishments. So what we're essentially saying is that this particular provision should have a minimum sentence, because we have had instances where judges are either biased or are able to give lower sentences for the offense of rape, because the law right now only provides for a maximum sentence. A minimum sentence will allow for us to have some sort of uniformity also in terms of issuing out these rulings against these perpetrators. On issues of aggravated rape, we also come up with a very contentious issue, which is on circumstances of persons living with HIV, whereby the Sexual Offences Bill currently provides that if the perpetrator is a person living with HIV, then this will heighten, it will aggravate the offense that is rape. And we are saying, because of all the work that Uganda has done around stigma towards persons living with HIV, I think this particular point should be removed to not let us go back so many years behind. The UN SDGs around that speak about what we are doing around HIV, but also really this current government has so many programs under the Ministry of Health that have spoken about stigma, and the journey that we have taken so far, I think, shouldn't be derailed by imposing HIV as an aggravating factor around sexual offenses. The next one is sexual harassment. I'll not speak about this in detail because it's spoken about in the earlier pages on page 12, and some of the mistakes in here, or some of the recommendations, I think, were sort of handled in the latest version that I saw in December, so I will not go into that. I will then run to page 29. It still speaks about prostitution and prohibition of sexual act with a prostitute. I think we've spoken about criminalization of sex work and the dangers around it. There's been claims that we are trying to duplicate those. So the use of just the term prostitution is something that we believe that we shouldn't continue with. The World Health Organization, the UN, and a lot of work on human rights and conventions that Uganda is part of, and the spaces that we are part of. The term sex work is what has been preferred because it underscores that contribution. We must be honest with ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, that there are families that are surviving because of sex work in your constituents. And you will also bear me witness that there are many, I do not know if members of parliament do this, many men in this room that have perhaps paid for sex before. You have taken a girl to Dubai before, paid for her to have sex with her. Right? So there's a lot of sex work happening, and I think it's time that we actually change the terms that we use, but also recognition of sex work as work. Whether it's something that has not happened before, whether we say it's the morals of our societies, it's actually surprising that the sex work actually happens in the same societies that you keep referencing. So we are also saying, let's just decriminalize and stop just using the word that is prostitution. The next clause is on page 19, which describes what a sexual act is. And just allow me a minute to read these because the recommendation will make sense thereafter. The sexual act is defined as the penetration of the vagina, mouth, and anus, however slight, of any person by a sexual organ. And then D goes ahead to say the unlawful use of any object or an organ by a person on another person's sexual organ or anus. And we are saying that in 2016, when there were so many discussions around sexual harassment in institutions of higher learning, you must remember students from Makerere, students from, I think it was Ndeje, that gave, what are they called, testimonies. about how a lot of men right now are not using the penis as perhaps the Penal Code Act must have thought as then. That people are using tongues, people are using dildos, people are using all these kinds of things, and the Sexual Offences Bill seeks to actually broaden what a sexual act is. And we are therefore recommending that we should revise the meaning of a sexual act to make it more comprehensive and include penetration, however slight, between the penis and the vulva of the penis, and penetration, however slight, between the penetration, however slight. We're also saying that we should include that it should be a contact between the mouth and penis, the mouth and the vulva, or the mouth and the anus. Then 3, we are also proposing that we broaden it to include penetration, however slight, of an anal or genital opening of another by a hand or finger or any object with an intent to abuse, humiliate, harass, degrade, or arouse or gratify the sexual desire of any person. I remember in one of the consultations we had with WOPA, someone from DPP's office was mentioning 3 cases they are stuck with because these particular perpetrators used organs that were not hands, they were not, they were machines that they were using. One of them was an underage girl. So to be able to have the right ingredients for the DPP to do their work, I think it's important that we broaden what a sexual organ is. On what rape is, which is clause 2(1) of the Sexual Offences Bill, we are proposing that punishment for rape imposes a maximum punishment of life imprisonment, which leaves the court with a discretion to impose a less sentence based on the aggravating or mitigating factors of each case. However, we are noting that a minimum sentence should also be imposed for rape cases to avoid leniency in sentencing and being biased.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
Procedure, Mr. Chairman.
The health dangers around criminalizing sex work, because I know a lot of persons at least agree with us that it's important to recognize that they are quote-unquote prostitutes in our strategies around addressing HIV, but we want to look at it from the economic angle, that there are people that actually survive on this as work. Around defilement, which is clause 16, and that's page 31, we are saying that we need to harmonize the punishments for rape and defilement to both hold a maximum of life imprisonment and a minimum of 4 years. What we are seeking around defilement is to ensure that there's a bit of uniformity. As you might remember, one of the things the Sexual Offences Bill is trying to do is to also harmonize punishments for sexual offenses and have them in one place where we can sort of go to. I'll go to page 23, which talks about, clause 23, which talks about child sex tourism, which is on page 33. And